Following an exciting weekend of Women's FA Cup action, we're here to review it. The quarterfinals didn't disappoint as Palace troubled Chelsea, Villa made life difficult for Manchester City, and Arsenal crashed out spectacularly. This is our Women's FA Cup quarterfinals review. Alright, let's get into it then. FA Cup quarter-final weekend is over and we're going to be here to review all 4 games and of course preview slightly those semi-finals. They're still a month away but they're interesting ties. And let's start then by discussing the game on Saturday, Harry. Manchester United versus Sunland, a 3-1 win for the Red Devils. I've seen this online perpetuated as United cruising to victory, United being commanding, but I think that's inaccurate. I thought Sunderland put up a good fight here.
I think when you talk about this game, more of the credit and the performance goes to Sunderland. Yes, United played well and they did deserve to win, but that was expected. It was a routine performance from United and that's what they needed to do. But credit to Sunderland because they turned up away at a top WSL side, and to only lose by a 2-goal margin is a really good result. To score a goal, the goal was a bit fortunate, but they still managed to find the back of the net. So for Sunderland, I think a 3-1 loss is not a bad representation of themselves. They've not had a brilliant season of it, but they've done very, very well here to give Man United some sort of test. And credit to United because it's very easy to let the pressure get to you and end up crumbling under that little bit of pressure that Sunderland provided. But United, it was routine. It was a good performance, as you say. It wasn't one of their best of the season, but it didn't need to be. Yes, it's a quarter-final, but against weaker opposition, it was one of those where we knew that even if United played okay, they'd probably still get a result. And I think that's a bit what happened here. So well done for Sunderland because to reach the last eight of the FA Cup and to push Man United all the way was a really, really good performance. But for United, it was business as usual, really, and the holders are into the semi-finals.
Indeed, and I think they'll be happy with that. I think Sunderland did really well to make the game scrappy and nervy at times, especially once it was 2-1. They really started to put pressure on United. United, though, 16 shots to 4 on target to 1 on target. Realistically, this is a game they should have had out of reach a lot earlier in the game. 69% possession to 31%. So United were the better team, and that is expected. But Sunderland did really well to put up a good fight, especially considering they're not right at the sharp end of the Championship. And they came and competed with a side who are second in the WSL right now and who played a virtually full-strength team. Bar Dominique Janssen coming out the side and Jade Riviere, that was full strength for United. So I think Sunderland can take immense pride from that. And obviously this Championship season isn't going to be one that bears fruit for them, or they're not going to go anywhere, really. So it's pretty much right off the last few months of the season. But they gave a really good account of themselves today, and I think they can take momentum from that pushing into next season.
Yeah, exactly. They've got to build on this. I mean, I'd be surprised next year if they were to repeat getting to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. But it's a really big moment for them, and the fact, the experience that the players will get, and that the fans would have enjoyed of going to the Leigh Sports Village and playing against a side like Man United. I'm sure it was a big day for Sunderland, and that's good for them at the end of the day. For a Championship side to get into the last 8, it was a really, really strong performance from them. So, and when you look at the other teams in these quarterfinals, Sunderland are definitely by far the weakest.
They're the only Championship side left in the competition.
So credit to them. Well done for getting here. At the end of the day, we predicted it. They weren't really going to. I didn't see any way they'd get past United.
No,
and that was true.
And it was the least close tie, the most open one, really. Both mean the same thing there, but you know what I mean. United were the most clear out of any of the sides who went on to win. So that was what we expected from the game. And United into the semi-finals, one more game away from Wembley, which is obviously where they were 12 months ago when they won the FA Cup. Let's move on then to Man City Aston Villa, because there's a lot more to talk about here. I was live for this one. It was a game where City, it was a marked improvement on their recent performances. Villa still put in a good shift, and on a different day, if Emily Salmon slots it past Yamashita on 37 minutes, I think it was, suddenly it's a completely different match. So I think it was one that hung in the balance. But what City did really well was in the second half, they took their chances, they got the job done. Important win for Man City, you feel?
Yeah, an absolutely massive one. We've said that these next 7 days for City were absolutely crucial. The FA Cup quarter-final and the Women's League Cup final on Saturday. And this was a really big one because City need silverware, they need success. So to get past Villa here was really, really strong. I think that first half we saw a couple signs of what City's kind of poor performance. It felt like a bit of a hangover in that first 45 from the draw to West Ham on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Shaw with a huge miss and just not dangerous.
Shaw wasn't on it. I mean, I
No.
know she went on to score, but there was a lot of moments where she went to hold up the ball and it didn't quite come off. There was obviously that chance in the first half which she didn't take. Uncharacteristically poor for Shaw. I know she obviously went on to score and it was a well taken goal, but that's that. It's funny, but one goal in Khadija Shaw performance is still not what we expect, and that's just because of the high standard she sets herself. But I think it was a difficult game for Shaw. I think that Patton and Parker can take huge pride in the fact they made it really difficult for Khadija Shaw. They were on her back every time she touched the ball. They were decently keeping up with her in the foot race, so they made it quite difficult for her. I know, obviously, she went on to score and she burst away in behind, and it was a great ball from Mary Fowler that she tucked away the chance. But I think they did really well to especially first half, really frustrate Shaw, and as a consequence, frustrate City, because City, the way that Villa set up, really narrow, really compact, City had to play the ball wide a lot, and they just kept crossing the ball in. And when it comes, and Villa were being combative with her, the way that the fullbacks were closing down the wingers meant that the crosses were going quite high, and that was quite difficult for City to adjust to. So it was really good play from Aston Villa in the first half. The second half, City stung them quite early on. I think that sort of crushed their morale, and then obviously Jess Park went on to add another. But it was definitely a game where it felt like Villa could have got something from it. City did well to ride that out in the first half, and then in the second half they took their chances. So a good performance from both. Again, 69% possession to 31%. It's weirdly that's identical to the United Sunderland game. At 12 shots to 5, 6 on target to 1. So ultimately, yes, Villa put up a good performance, but you can't say that City didn't deserve to win.
It's one of those where Aston Villa just didn't get going with that. I mean, I know Salmon had a really, really good chance and they did come forwards, but in terms of actually being dangerous on the counter, it just didn't materialise. If you look at the Chelsea game and the City game at Villa Park earlier this season in the league, they managed to, they got into the final third, they got shots off different.
Or at the Joey actually back in November.
For Villa today, they didn't manage to test Yamashita. Yeah, they looked dangerous on the counter attack, but I mean, to be fair, a succession of fouls managed to help City kind of stop that, but. It'll be a frustrating one because I think Arroyo's plan would have been to defend well, then get yourself a goal, give yourself something to defend with. Because if Villa had gone 1-0 up here, they'd have had something to fight for and they would have held on a lot longer. But without that goal, it felt inevitable that City were going to find a goal. Shaw scores and that kind of just changed the game from there.
And that's the problem we're missing, isn't it? Because Villa got that chance. And if Salmon takes that, it's a different game. Because Villa suddenly have a win to defend.
Yeah.
And I think they probably would have held on. Or, they would have given it a very good go. But, yes, Salmon misses that chance. That was their one opportunity of the game. If you're playing that style where you are looking to counter-attack, you're not going to get a whole load of chances, especially when Gracie Pryor and Alexandria were doing their best job at just taking players out as soon as they were looking to counter. Which, I get it's tactical fouls. Everyone makes them, professional fouls. But, I think there was that chance for Villa which they should have taken. They were unlucky not to. Salmon just had to put it either side of Yamashita, not above her. And a great save though from Ayaki Yamashita. Another clean sheet for her. Another win for City. And again, they're through to semi-finals. Yeah,
a big win for City. Through to the last four, and they will want to go all the way and get this FA Cup. But I mean, I think the Park goal as well, by the way, was absolutely crucial because it was at that point Daly had already come on for Villa, and Hansen and Moritz were readying to come on, and Arroyo was ready to throw players at it, and then Park scores, and and then Hansen and Moritz came on before the game got underway again, and it's like if Villa had held on for another
Villa
minute,
gave it away as well. It was their throwing, which they tried to throw into the middle of the park, which is number one in football with regarding throw-ins. Just don't do that. And they give the ball away, City go on to score. I think at that point in the game, it goes up the line. You just got to be sensible. They want to make changes then. They want to get players on. They want to try and influence the game. They made a big mistake, and that cost them ultimately. But I think it was a good account of themselves for Aston Villa. And I mean, no one expected them to win this game. Yeah. So
City deserved it at the end of the day. They won the game. It's what winners do. It's what good teams do. When again, it wasn't 5-star, but it was a good performance, and they got the result.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk now, actually, about the matchup in the semi-finals, because we've had the two quarterfinals play. United versus Manchester City was the draw. Tasty one.
Very, very tasty. Obviously, they've already faced each other in the League Cup quarterfinals, and Man City...
the fourth Manchester derby of the year.
Can't wait. To be fair, the action we've seen so far has been brilliant, but... Yeah.
I'm just relieved it wasn't Man City Chelsea. Yes. So I think I would have cried.
That would have been terrible, but... It's a really difficult one to call because, as I said, City got the upper hand in the Subway Cup quarter final. United tore them apart at the Etihad. They've still got to play each other at Old Trafford on the penultimate day of the season. So I have no idea who is going to win that FA Cup semi-final in a month's time. But it's going to be a good game because it's two sides that United will want to hold on to their trophy and retain their title, and City need to deliver. And if they don't win the League Cup this weekend, then they will put all their eggs in that basket for that FA Cup. So
it should create a really good tie.
It's going to be very interesting. It's one of those where I can see it could go away penalties. It's that close, it's that tight that I think it'll be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I just think at the moment, based on form, United would probably edge it, but we don't know where City will be in a month's time. If they've won the League Cup and won the Champions League quarterfinals by some miracle, they've won all of those games.
Green will be back.
Suddenly they're in a great position. That's true as well. So it's a difficult one to call being so far off, but it's a really exciting tie. And let's go on then to Chelsea Palace. We'll save the best one till last. Chelsea Palace, a game of football which Google is celebrating for me. Chelsea dominant, just couldn't capitalise on that.
Yeah, it was an expected performance. It's exactly what we thought was going to happen. Chelsea are going to be ones on top. Palace were going to sit in and just try and absorb pressure, and they did that for the majority of the match. But again, it's one of those for Chelsea. It wasn't perfect, but it was always going to be difficult against a side who were going to sit deep and not let you through. And in the end, it was a good goal from Lauren James and LJ looking really dangerous for Chelsea. She came off a really good national break. She's now got 3 goals in her last 3. So for Chelsea, for Lauren James to be hitting the ground running as you enter the business end of the season is very exciting. And the reason why in this game, because big players like her deliver, she's the reason that Chelsea go on and win games like this. So a big win for Chelsea. At the end of the day, it's a win and a clean sheet. You can't really complain. But similar to City, it wasn't a perfect performance, but it was still a good performance, and they got the result across the line. And to be honest, more a testament to Smeridon Palace, because this result was 7-0 earlier in the season. Yeah. So to only lose 1-0 in a quarter-final was not a bad result. And they were only 20-30 minutes away from potentially sending it to extra time.
Yeah, I think for Chelsea as well, being able to rest up as much as they did, come away with the game fine. I think it was good to see a return to a double pivot rather than a single pivot with Kira Walsh out injured. I think once again it shows just keep the double pivot.
Yeah.
We don't need to change formation halfway through a season. In the summer, if Bompard still wants to experiment with using 3-1-4-2s, whatever, and we can work it out from there, cool. Don't do it in March because this is the business end of the season. I don't want to see Chelsea experimenting with things halfway through a season. We know we can beat Manchester City if we play the same way we did at Stamford Bridge. Just do that on Saturday, win the League Cup, get through the Champions League games. I think playing a 4-2-3-1 is so much easier to bring players in and out of the side, which when you want to heavily rotate between games is so much easier. Just stick with what we know for now. I think, looking at this game, 21 shots to 2. Chelsea only put 5 of their 21 shots on target, though. And again, I don't think our finishing's been particularly strong recently, but 59% possession to 41%. Chelsea were good here.
Yeah, it's one of those where it felt like the goal was always going to come for Chelsea. It was one of those where, unless it was going to be 0-0 all the way through the penalties and then Palace won on pens, I didn't see Palace getting a goal in this game. So I think there was that kind of luxury for Chelsea that Palace just didn't want to come forward, really. It was as simple as that. So Chelsea were in control and they eventually managed to get their goal, but at the end of the day, for Palace. It's a similar note as we've said for the other side. They put on it was a good account of themselves.
It was a very good defensive performance. They got 7 blocks in front of Chelsea's shots. The keeper made 4 saves, Shea Inez, and that makes a difference because they made it really difficult for Chelsea to get shots away. Ultimately, yes, Chelsea went on to score, but it wasn't the most beautiful goal we've ever seen. I think Palace did well just to hold Chelsea. Again, it's Chelsea though, and there is that inevitability about them coming forwards. And ultimately, yes, Palace defended well, but they only took 2 shots all game. And realistically, it's difficult then to see a way that they win that match. But they did well. They gave a good account of themselves, as you say. It was a strong defensive performance. They made life difficult for Chelsea. And let's move on to our final quarterfinal, the one with all the drama. Arsenal 0, Liverpool 1.
Wow.
Harry, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't. And, it was one of those where we sat there in the preview and said that unless Villa shock City because City are out of form, I don't think we'll get an upset. And Liverpool kind of went, hold my beer. Really, really strong performance from Liverpool. And I think
if only Matt was still the manager, hold my beard was right there.
That is so good. But Amber Whiteley, credit to
Yeah.
her, and I do. A lot of people will obviously be looking at the negative side for Arsenal, but I think it's important first to praise Liverpool. It was a really, really strong performance. They went toe to toe with Arsenal. This wasn't one of those where Liverpool sat back and let Arsenal come onto them and then end up getting a goal on the counter attack. This was an even match. Liverpool were in it, and
I'd argue Liverpool a better side.
well, potentially
They
so.
took more shots. They had 3 times
fair
the
enough.
shots on target that Arsenal had. Arsenal had 1 shot on target in 90 minutes.
Wow.
Is it any surprise they went on to lose this game?
It's the same amount as Palace did and Villa, and that's the reason they've lost.
And Sunderland.
And Sunderland, that is, really not good reading for all the sides that lost, but especially for Arsenal. But yeah, credit to Amber Whiteley. She's been in the job too. And if they're for 2 weeks now, if they're going to win every game 1-0, they're going to have a brilliant end of the season because it means they're going to win the FA Cup and they're going to finish really high in the league. But really, really good. Another clean sheet on the board. It was a strong defensive performance, but they were really good with the ball. And this is something that obviously a lot of people criticise the sacking of Matt Beard, including ourselves. But what we've seen with Matt Beard is he doesn't like his side don't want the ball. They sit defensive and they try and spring people on the counter attack. But Amber Whiteley has got a Liverpool side now that she wants to get on the ball. And because they've got dangerous players, Olivia Smith was superb in this game, by the way. But because they've got really high quality players like Smith, like Howe, like Herbinger, when they're on the ball, they do cause problems. That's exactly what happened here. This wasn't one of those where Liverpool had 35% of the possession. They have 45?
45%,
45.
55.
That's really competitive, especially with an Arsenal side who also like to be on the ball themselves. So for Liverpool, they got into this game. The goal, a little bit fortunate, but that happens in football when you are probing. To be fair to Haug, it was still a decent shot.
That's a really well taken strike. She's unlucky it didn't just go in.
Unfortunate for Van Domslaar, but that happens in football sometimes. But it's one of those where I think that Liverpool did at the end of the day. They deserved to find the back of the net. They played some really, really good stuff.
I think it's one of those moments as people who talk about the women's game where you just have to sit back and eat a slice of humble pie because before this weekend in the previews we said that there's no way that Liverpool will beat Arsenal this weekend. I even said it on Sunday morning stream while covering Man City Aston Villa that I just couldn't see Liverpool beating Arsenal. When Matt Beard was sacked, I said there's more chance they'd win that game if they had Beard. I can't see Whiteley coming in and winning it. So it's one of those, but also a very difficult game to predict at times. And Liverpool have done so much better than we expected. So I think on that one, you just have to admit defeat in terms of our comments on it. But Amber Whiteley's done a really good job there so far. A big win here in the FA Cup. If they can keep form up in the league to the end of the season, we'll see where they end up. But much more positive play. I think Olivia Smith was inarguably the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about Arsenal's team. But also about the quality of Olivia Smith.
Yeah.
Olivia Smith made McCabe look like a National League player. The way that she just kept taking on and beating it. I mean, there's a clip going around at the moment of a lovely bit of skill where McCabe tries to take her out. She can't get anywhere near her. She can't even take her out. And so that spoke volumes to me about the quality of Olivia Smith. And I think Liverpool have a real gem on their hands there. We've criticised their recruitment over the last few years, but that signing in the summer, bringing in a player of that quality, that's a huge, huge achievement from their recruitment staff.
Yeah, and credit to Liverpool because they got that right. And they tactically as well for Whiteley, they got it right from Arsenal. Against Arsenal, and this is where my big questions are, is that Liverpool got it right against Arsenal. Whiteley somehow, and this is where the big problems come for Slagers, is that Whiteley won that battle and Slagers didn't react, and this has been the biggest problem, not only in this game that I've seen a lot of people talk about, was not only with the personnel, but with the way that Arsenal are playing. There was no reaction. Nothing happened. There was a half-time change. I think I can't remember if Marlon came on or off, but that change happened. But then when they were chasing the game, I'm watching Elistad came on for Ford. And I understand that she ended up going up front as like some target forward. But I don't get that. I really don't. When you've got attackers on the bench, why are you throwing a... So I just didn't... The subs were really bizarre for me. Yeah. And they just... It was too late. They didn't... Liverpool... They waited until Liverpool scored. And again, just too late. And there's questions here because this Arsenal performance has probably been one of their worst of the season.
I think that it opens up wider questions about Arsenal as a whole. I think now, this loss marks, it means now that they can't win the FA Cup this year, meaning they will go 10 years without winning the Women's FA Cup. And that is a truly awful statistic for everyone involved at Arsenal. In that time, they've claimed one league title, and realistically, they're not going to win the title this year. So in 10 years, no FA Cups, one league title. Yes, they've won some League Cups in there, but quite frankly, it can only be described as a period of huge failure for Arsenal.
Yeah.
A side who dominated the women's games in its infancy, but now it's a situation where they seem to be so far off winning something, and Slagers has caught huge praise this season, and rightfully so for some of the stuff they've done. But ultimately, football is a results business, and they're out of the League Cup stage. They're out of the FA Cup at the quarterfinals stage. They're not going to win the WSL this season, and I don't see them, going through in the winning the UWSL. Maybe they'll get to the semi-finals, but realistically, they're not going to win something this year. And to say something controversial, would they be in a better position in one of the cups or the leagues if Ida Val was still in a position? Was still in the I'm not saying necessarily they would. Just posing the question out there.
I think that the off-pitch stuff would have probably played the on-pitch performances, and it would have just got worse and worse as it gone on. But it's the thing, and it's.
But that is the thing. People criticise Jonas Eidevall, but they did reach finals.
Yeah,
they did go. Yeah. They were competitive.
They
in
love
the league
Cup.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge.
It's the big games. It's the big games and this is why I think what Slagers is an interim, fair enough. And I think that those results were what earned her a permanent position. But as a manager, it's those big games that still need to be worked out. The how they lost that League Cup semi-final to Man City, I will never know, because City were out of sorts. Arsenal went ahead in that game. They looked like the better side, and then City turned it around and completed the comeback late on. And again, we are talking semi-finals, quarterfinals. And whenever they've played against the big sides, it's just not been there. I know they've got results at City and Arsenal, City United this season, but they only drew to United. So they've lost to Chelsea twice. It's the big. I know Eidevall was in one of those Chelsea games, but it's those big games.
I think it's important to say. I think Slagers is a very good manager, or a good coach. I think she's a very promising young manager. But it seems like a clash of ideas now at Arsenal, because all of the recruitment has been geared towards, we want to compete here and now, we want to win things. Look at the signings from last summer, bringing in Mariona Caldente, a proven winner. Arsenal's recruitment's all been geared towards winning things. Even Kelly coming in January, it's proven winners. All of it's been geared towards winning competitions. But then they bring in Slagers, and that's very much a project manager.
Yeah.
And so what happens this summer now? Do those big players want to move? Are they looking to bring in younger players? Realistically, how much of our squad can you shift without much problem?
Yeah,
I think there are some problems at Arsenal, and I think it's interesting because a few weeks ago you just said that they're ahead of Manchester City in pecking order, and they probably will get Champions League ahead of Man City now. I mean, unless there's some sort of dramatic drop off, but. If City were to go on to win either the League Cup or the FA Cup, two competitions which they're still in, and finish fourth, is that a better season than Arsenal finishing third and getting knocked out in the semis and the quarters of the cups?
I mean, it's a hell of a question. I think it's one of those where I don't want to criticise Slagers too heavily, because, as you say, it's that contrast where if you were to say that Slagers came in on an interim basis, then got the permanent job, and they ended up finishing in the top three, they got Champions League football. Yeah. She wasn't expected to come in and win anything. That's fair enough. And the fans and the board and Slagers, and even we will sit here and go, fair play to Slagers, she's done a good job, she's recovered it, and they've got UWSL football. But as I say, those players don't want to settle for third in the league and no trophies. Carolyn Tay's come in from winning league after league after league with Barcelona. The squad now of players who don't want to sit in the second, third, and only get to finals and semi-finals. These are players who want to be winning trophies consistently. And it's this season, I think they'll be okay with it. But next, as you say, they've got to...
But that's the problem. Slagers now, there's pressure on her to adjust quickly. Because if not, Arsenal are going to end up fourth next season. And they're not going to win more titles. And suddenly, that spell keeps going on where they're not right at the sharp end competing for trophies. That's where Arsenal should be. That's where they belong as a club. They've got the biggest fan base in the WSL. No one can deny that. They regularly sell out the Emirates Stadium. But realistically, they're not going to win a trophy now this season. Yeah. Last season, all they won was the League Cup. And they've won one league in the last 10 years and no FA Cups. That is a huge period of failure. And I think it goes above the management staff and the playing staff. Yes, the players let themselves down in this game. Yes, I think the manager could have done more in this game. But ultimately, when you're looking at such a period of failure, I think the accountability also has to go above the management. What's going on at upper levels? What's happening with the recruitment? Because there's been so many bad decisions, odd decisions over the last few years, and now Arsenal are in a position where the women's game is in its biggest boom, and Arsenal aren't there at the sharp end right now.
Yeah, I think that this end of the season is absolutely crucial. If they get to the UWCL semi-finals and they hold on to that top 3 spot, then I think it will still be a fairly successful season. But as we said with Man City, before Man City got through today, and if Man City lose the cup final, we sit here and go, there's a lot of pressure on this end of the season, and now there is for Arsenal, because if they do lose to Real Madrid and they slip outside the top 3, then suddenly everything we're saying is very worrying. But if they manage to hold on to that top 3 place and they get to the semi-finals or potentially the final in the UWCL, then
or win it. If they win it, then everything's out the window.
Oh yeah, if they win it, Slager's best manager of the season. But that's football. That is how football works sometimes, which is bizarre. But yeah, it's one of those where there's now, because they're now out the FA Cup and because they're already out the League Cup, there's now more pressure on those 2 competitions, and there's more pressure to deliver. And if they do deliver, then fair enough. Credit to them, and it'll end up being a really good season. But if they don't, then there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah. Well, characteristically, we have sidetracked. Chelsea-Liverpool semi-final in the FA Cup, though. Good occasion for Liverpool, but is it difficult to see them winning that game?
Yeah, I think that I'll be intrigued to see how Liverpool play, because if they try and take the game to Chelsea, then it could get very interesting, because we have seen sides this season who are on the front foot, they're aggressive, and they end up taking Chelsea to a really, really good game. And if Whiteley wants to play like that, it could get interesting. Yeah, but definitely. At the end of the day,
you've got to look at Brighton. If they play, if they give Chelsea a game like that, maybe they get a result.
And Liverpool got the players to cause issues, so it'll be very interesting. I think it will be close, but again, what we said before this game, I think Chelsea will have too much quality.
Yeah, probably so. But yeah, we'll see those games in mid-April, and then we'll look forward to watching Chelsea Man City for the 6th time this season as they try to go to Wembley. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in those competitions. Very much could be Man United Liverpool. So that's how close it is now in those semi-finals. Anyway, that rounds up this weekend's review. We'll be back on Wednesday ranking or debating your hot takes, your women's football hot takes. So if you want to go and leave a hot take, join the Discord now. That'll be linked in the description, so go and get involved there. That, though, is everything from us today. Go and check out the video on screen now if you want to watch more. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.